So is it nice outside?
It's right at that temperature that as soon as you move, you're hot, but as soon as you quit moving, you're cold, you know? Sweatshirt on, sweatshirt off, sweatshirt on, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it sunny out?
Cloudy, a bit cloudy. Clouds rolling in. It's supposed to get kind of have some weather tonight.
You see that my office has windows, but you may not have noticed that the windows just stare at a brick wall.
Yeah, you got a good view. Got a good view.
I have no idea if it's sunny out or not.
Stuck in my box. Doc Martin, Chemistry Martin upstairs has a good office, good view.
Yeah.
Nice window, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess if I had a nice view, I'd probably be distracted all the time.
100%. 100%. Staring out the window. Yeah, absolutely. Wonder what it's like outside. I worked at a restaurant that had windows that was surrounded by windows, right? Basically a window, it seemed like. And even when it was raining outside in Washington, I just wanted to be outside. And I'm just, you know, it drove me nuts not to be able to be outside.
Yeah.
And then I work outside and I wanted to be inside.
Right.
I don't have practice anymore, so you'll see me for like the
Thank
you so much.
It's like, what's going on?
That's usually the one where I step in.
You guys were in the restaurant last night?
I was.
I think I saw your everything walk out. I was like,
Yes.
hey.
Yes.
Nice. What was going on outside? There was a lot of people.
The
Really good.
ACs is like the sports like awards ceremony.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
I think a lot of people are here.
I wanted to let you know that because of that Ribbons of Excellence Day, they used this room and they like messed up the computer system.
Yes.
So I wasn't able to record for like 2 days.
That's all good.
And then I was emailing IT
Yeah.
3 times.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I can always look through the slides so that I can get, and then if I can come to you if I don't get something.
So finally got working today.
No, that's all good. How was your time at UW?
It was great.
You got some pretty bad weather while you were there.
I did. We had like a tornado.
Yeah, that's where I'm from, so my aunt's really country was like huge pieces.
Okay.
And I was like, wait, my professor's there right now. I was like, oh no.
So you're from Madison?
Yeah, my mom went to UW, all my friends go to UW and stuff. I love it there. Like if it weren't for, I love it. It's an amazing school.
Campus.
Yeah. Did you do anything like very Madison while you were there, like go down State Street or anything?
Well, I met up with an old friend from graduate school, and so we went to it's called the Nitty Gritty.
Yeah, yeah, everyone goes there for their birthdays if you're from around there.
So it was funny because she went to undergrad there, but then we went to graduate school together and she stayed.
Yeah.
So that's how I met her. She was telling me about that Nitty Gritty was where she got her first drink there.
Yeah, everyone goes there for their birthday. Yeah, because it's right by the like where the hockey rinks are on the corner, and that's just like so like on the way to like sports games and stuff. It's like pretty central to all of campus, so everyone goes to the Gritty. No, I was jealous that you were back there. I was like, oh, because that's where I spent all my summers and whatnot. Like they've got a beautiful farmers market during the summer around the Capitol. Like it's awesome there.
I was impressed how they didn't have the sailing boats there, but
At the union?
At the union,
Yeah.
I was thinking, wow, that'd be so cool to learn
Yeah.
how to sail.
My mom took a class when she was in college, and she would take like summer classes until she graduated in 3 years, and she like, so she just had to take like, a random elective class, and like one of them was like learning how to sail. And she's like, the worst one was it was in the spring, and you had to capsize and like learn how to get back in. And she's like, it was so cold there, and I was like, I can imagine. No. Yeah, it's definitely a very unique and. I mean, I've been to a ton of like Big Ten campuses, but it's an awesome school.
Yeah, that's like.
That's where I wanna go to grad school. Yeah.
That's impressive. Hi, this is your swing.
Oh, okay.
I got the little sticky notes in there. Yeah, well, here's your test bag, so it's for good work.
What's that coming? I'd love to.
Well, I don't want to like sit in anyone's spot. That's right.
Those sit there, but she's, that's all. She's very cool. She sit there.
Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
I did get an email about, I think it's like student course evaluations, and, yeah, I'm not sure how it works here, but, it sounds like it was through Blackboard. Have you seen anything like that? Yeah, like how long does it take to fill out?
It's very quick.
Is that like 2 minutes per class, they have to like do each one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll remind you, if you don't mind, finding that, 2 minutes at some point in time. Maybe we'll try and end a little bit early today I'll try and give you that 2 minutes to fill out there. So someone remind me, or I'll make it out for myself. Another reminder is to upload your notes for chapter number 15, also to Blackboard when you get a chance. We do have time, but if you've already finished making notes for chapter 15, why not upload, right? All right, so I think you know that we're nearing the end of the semester here, so just want to let you know what the schedule is here for our remaining time together. We only have one more chapter to go, so we're going to start chapter 16 today, and we'll finish that up by the end of next week. So that's the final chapter in order to make notes for. And then on Tuesday of next week, that'll be our final lab session. So Tuesday is our last lab session. So hopefully you still have that one table with, or that one worksheet with all those questions about your bacterium to talk about. So hopefully you've had a chance, or I guess you still have time, but don't forget to find information about your bacterium and bring that sheet with you on Tuesday. And then we'll just kind of go around the room, and each person will take a turn at sharing information about your bacterium. So that'll be Tuesday's lab session. Everyone will give a short presentation. So no slides or anything like that. Just kind of read off your worksheet. Use that as a guide, basically, to kind of remind yourself, what you did and what you discovered. So you don't have to memorize anything. there's really no point in memorizing some of the stuff. But, what you share is informative, so people can learn from you. So, let's see it that way. And then our last exam is going to be Monday, April 27th. It's not cumulative, it'll be over our final 2 chapters, which are chapters 15 and 16. So just 2 chapters, 15 and 16, for our 4th and final exam for Monday, April 27th. And it looks like that one will be at 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock this room. And then I just posted another practice test. So this will be your last practice test, for your last exam. So, all right, and I already talked about the course evaluation. We'll try and take some time out for that today. Any questions about, what we're doing? I'm always asking myself, what am I doing? Do you ever do that? Yes, okay, so I'm not alone. But, if you do have questions, just feel free to, stop me and I'll be happy to answer. Any quick questions? All right. So this is our last chapter in the textbook. There's actually, a number of other chapters still in the textbook. So, it's not really possible to cover everything that's in the textbook, but nevertheless, if you have the book, you should probably hang on to it because this is a really nice resource for the future. I think most of you are heading towards that. A health profession of one kind or another. There's a lot of good, basic information here that will come in handy for you. So previously, in chapters 15 and 14, we learned about the innate and adaptive immune systems. And in this last chapter here, we're going to learn about how we interact with microorganisms outside of immunity. Now this is kind of an interesting way to start this chapter, and it kind of reminds us that things were different before the advent of modern medicine. So on the first sentence there, people used to believe that diseases were associated with bad behavior. So in other words, people believe that suffering was the result of sin. So, you did something bad, and, the gods, so to speak, were punishing you for your bad behavior. And that, so in other words, you had leprosy, and that's because you did something to upset the gods in one way or another. And in a way, I know it sounds kind of funny today, but in a way we still kind of think that way. Like, how many times have you come down with a cold or the flu, and someone told you, maybe your mom, hey, you didn't wear your coat outside when it was cold out. You were bad. This is now the reason for that. So it's the same kind of thinking that we see, dating way back there. But anyways, over time, people come to realize that bad things can happen to good people, and diseases are not necessarily associated with something that you may have done. So with that understanding, People then sought out, well, what are the reasons for diseases? What are the causes of them? And that led, Robert Koch, this German scientist, and others to come up with what we now know as the germ theory of disease. The germ theory of diseases. Okay, no, it's not your necessarily your sins, but rather, these pathogens out there that we kind of have given the popular name of germ are the causes of those diseases. So remember, these pathogens could be bacteria, but they could be fungi, they may be viruses. So collectively, they're referred to as these germs. So that's the word germ is more of a popular term. It's not, scientists don't like to use that term. It's kind of like saying bug versus insect. Like educated people like to use the term insect versus a bug. So that's kind of the distinction there. And then finally, how do we know? How do we know that bacteria, fungi, viruses, those helminths, those flatworms, for example, how do we know they can cause diseases? Well, we now know that because of some steps that Robert Koch developed, which are now known as Koch's postulates. And it's these steps here, which we'll learn a little bit later in this course, that we typically will follow in order to know and discover the causal agents of each disease. So as new diseases emerge, Koch's postulates are followed, those steps, in order to determine what is the cause of those diseases. All right, think back to your general biology courses. Think back to maybe high school, when maybe when you first encountered or learned about symbiosis. So when we think about our bodies and the microbes that inhabit our body, that can form an environment we call an ecosystem. So that environment includes the surface, our skin, and also our interior mucous membranes. So it's in those layers and the microbes on it that we see, what we call a microenvironment. So we have like distinct environmental conditions related to, like temperature, moisture, food, those kind of things, nutrients, where we'll see different kind of interactions taking place. So there's three possible interactions that are listed here by these bullets here. So these are all examples of a symbiosis. So symbiosis just means a close interaction between two or more entities, you and these microorganisms. So normally when we think of a symbiosis, we think of the first one, which is mutualism. Mutualism, both you and the microbe benefit from the relationship. So in the example here, they mentioned, within your intestines, there are bacteria that actually help you. They can actually provide or create vitamins that you need for normal metabolism. Vitamins they serve as is coenzymes for your enzymes, so your enzymes work properly. A lot of times they're involved in those oxidation reduction reactions. And then in exchange, you provide bacteria with basically a nice home. So that means, you know, like a warm environment where they prefer to grow. You provide them with food. The food that you eat is also used by them as food. And likewise, you know, the beverages you consume, you provide them with moisture, with water. So try to imagine that. Free home, free food, free water. Who wouldn't be happy under those kind of conditions? Okay, so that's mutualism. All right, then we have commensalism. One partner benefits, which is, in this case, the microorganism. The microorganism benefits for the same reasons that we learn from mutualism. They benefit by having free housing, free food. But you're like the landlord. You don't get anything, but you're not really harmed by the tenants either. So, for the most part, you know, it's a wash there, right? So that's commensalism. But then the last one is the one that you know, probably is the kind of like the emphasis of this particular textbook and course, and that is with parasitism. So again, we're looking at a close interaction between two things where the microorganism benefits, but you are harmed by their growth, by their presence. So the micro benefits, but you do not, at your expense. All right, do these three forms of symbiosis, what kind of, are they familiar to you? They kind of ring a bell a little bit? Okay. All right, so, you know, we learned in, you know, a number of chapters here that, you know, we have these microorganisms that are normally present in and on our body that we call the microbiome. And then I mentioned that, you know, the various parts of our body are, you know, provide distinct habitats or microenvironments. For example, you know, our skin is going to be dry, whereas our mouth will be very moist. So those are very different environments. You know, the skin will be a little bit salty, you know, due to perspiration. Okay, so it's because of those kind of environmental differences that we see different kinds of bacteria that are inhabitants of those parts. For example, on skin we see Staphylococcus, but we don't see it as much in the mouth. So knowing that there are these different, that, you know, bacteria prefer to live on different parts of our body, that kind of gives us an idea of, you know, when we discover bacteria inanimate objects, like maybe in my water bottle or something like that, it kind of gives you an idea of where they came from, and what part of the body did they originate from. For example, like some of you, you know, while we're sampling, you know, discovering bacteria, you know, someone found a bacterium from, someone found Pseudomonas, for example. Somebody found, I think somebody found, I'm trying to remember, maybe I don't remember. I don't know if anyone found streptococcus or not, but so it's possible that those, came from, originated from someone's intestines that, maybe, I know it's kind of disgusting to think about the bathrooms, but bacteria can actually leave the toilet. The bacteria in the toilet water there can actually exit that bowl, in aerosols in the air, just real fine mist, and then can travel, in the room, outside the room, and then, settle down on surfaces where, you kind of end up picking them up by accident. So, so with that in mind, I think everyone knows, hey, don't eat in the bathroom, right? Because you don't want to accidentally ingest those organisms. There's other things about, don't place, it's not a good idea to have your toothbrush out where there's a toilet nearby. I know a lot of bathrooms are kind of set up that way where you have a sink and a toilet, but try and not have your toothbrush out where it could be exposed to the air from that toilet. Because, the toothbrush, again, that's where you're unknowingly could transfer the bacteria into your mouth. So knowing that, you can kind of help protect yourself a little bit. All right, so it's kind of cool that we have a pretty good idea of what kind of microbes are found on different parts of the body. But on this slide, it kind of reminds us that the composition can differ from one person to another. So what's growing on my skin may be a little bit different from what's on yours. And it could change. So it's not all, so from birth to, you will all die at some point in time. So from birth to death, your microbiome could change. Partly due to, what the foods that you eat. We did already remember that we did talk about there are some foods that are rich in healthy bacteria. You remember what some of those examples are? How you can put beneficial bacteria into your system. What kind of foods? Fermented foods like yogurt. The pickled foods, the kimchi, for example, they have those microbes that can help remove the microplastics from your system. I mean, that's pretty good stuff. Okay, so you can take action to try and put beneficial microbes into your body. There's a very strong connection here between obesity and bacteria. So there's this family of bacteria called the Firmicutes. They're associated with obesity, and versus another family called the Bacteroidetes that are seen more in, I guess, what they call thinner people here. So one of the strategies that people are trying to work on is how can you shift the types of microbes that you have in your body, and that will affect your metabolism. Okay, so maybe keep that in mind in the future. Why? Well, that's because whenever I don't know if I should tell this to you, but usually when I see students, 10 years after they graduate, it's hard for me to recognize them because they put on so much weight. Okay, something to look forward to. Oh boy. All right, here's some information that we've already learned as well about the benefits of the microbiome. One is that they do protect us from pathogens. So remember that they do take up space. They utilize nutrients that could be used by a pathogen. So there's direct competition going on, and they could actually be releasing substances that will actually prevent the growth, like an antibiotic. And then there are chemicals that could harm your microbiome, so various forms of medication, especially the antibiotics. And that could make you more susceptible to infection. I know it sounds kind of weird. You're taking an antibiotic to kill the bacteria, but you may be killing the bacteria that they're actually protecting you from infection. So it could be counterproductive. I know, life is complicated, right? All right, here, I think this next one is actually new for you, and that is now that we know that we have an immune system that can respond to the presence of pathogens, that our microbiome could actually help us in stimulating recognition of pathogens based on similarities. So you may have some bacteria in your system that are similar to a pathogen. For example, we have a strain of E. coli that's responsible for food poisoning. But you all have E. coli already in your intestines that's not harmful. That's part of your normal microbiome. So your adaptive immune system, recognizes E. coli, and then it's already primed so that when you do encounter that harmful strain, you can then respond to it much more quickly than if you had never been exposed to it before. Again, the adaptive immune system, it's not a first line of defense. So it will take days to build up that response, but nevertheless, it will keep you alive. All right, so knowing that, it can help you build up tolerance. And here's one that a hypothesis that you may have heard of before. Does anyone have allergies? A little bit? Okay. Where's Aiden when I need him? Well, one thought about, why is it that, some people have allergies, some people don't have allergies, and people are allergic to different things. Why is that? Well, one thought, which may or may not be correct, is that, maybe is due to, problems with immune tolerance. So in other words, our bodies recognize these things like, for example, pollen or certain kind of foods and will mount like an inflammatory immune response when it's not really supposed to. And it could be that it's due to the lack of exposure to substances during our use. So in other words, when you were like a baby or an infant, maybe you weren't exposed to all the different kind of things that are in the air or potentially in water that could actually help you to develop immune tolerance. And as a result of that, you're just kind of hypersensitive to things as an adult. So that's the idea here about the hygiene hypothesis, that maybe when you were a baby, maybe you should have been playing in the mud. Maybe you should have been swimming in that stinky water in the pond, that kind of stuff, in order to toughen your body up and build tolerance. All right, and then the last thing here is about the microbiome helping with your digestion. That's pretty much that is known, for sure. All right, here's something fun. People are trying to understand, scientists are trying to understand, well, do the microbiome help us in other ways? And so here we have a little bit of information about how it can help your cognitive ability and perhaps with your decision making, and which controls your behaviors, like what you decide to do. So here's a fun experiment I found about mice. Similar to people, there are some mice that are prone to have high anxiety, and then there are some that don't. They're more calm. And so they've done some interesting experiments following the movements of mice. So here's some examples of that here. So where you see a red line, that is like they're following it's like a tracing of the movement of the mouse. So in the first case, the mice are placed in this cross-shaped maze here. So they're typically placed in the middle, and then they're observed to see where do they go. So for these high anxiety mice, they just stay in like 3 of those arms. But in the low anxiety mice, they travel to all 4. Okay, so I guess the idea here being that the high anxiety ones are maybe they're more reluctant, they're more scared, I guess, to travel, to venture out. They're not as adventurous, they're not as relaxed as these low anxiety mice are. And then you can see this even a big difference when they're placed in a box. And so the high anxiety mice, they just run laps around the circle, around the perimeter of the box. But the lower ones, they'll actually check out the inside of the box in addition to the perimeter. So they're a little bit more bold, right? More adventurous than those with the higher anxiety. Anyways, to get us back to this experiment here, they did a microbiome transplant. So in other words, they're taking the microbiome from the high anxiety mice, putting them into the low, and then likewise taking the bacteria from the low and placing it into the high. So they're kind of switching them, what bacteria are in their intestines, and then they're placing them into these different kind of environments to see what happens. And what they discovered is that they can actually switch. They can actually switch their behaviors just by changing the type of microbes that are in their gut. Isn't that pretty cool? Like, don't you want to? What kind of person do you want to be? Like chill or stressed? I don't know. And I don't know, maybe some of you have noticed that, you know, certain foods will kind of hype you up a little bit more than others, or maybe settle you down. All right, any questions about this one? There's a connection here between the type of microorganisms in your intestines and with affecting, you know, potentially affecting behavior, decision making, thought processing. That's pretty wild, isn't it? Yeah. All right. I think we're gonna wind things down here. Make this our last slide here. There's a whole bunch of different kind of terms related to diseases, and one of them is called colonization. Colonization. So you know, think about diseases as, you know, being exposed, you know, to, you know, a relatively small number of pathogens, but then once they become established, you know, they'll start to multiply to larger numbers, and then they'll create a colony. So that's where you have a larger number. So it's kind of like in the think about your petri dishes when you did that streak plate method. You put a little bit of bacteria on your dish, you know, so small that you couldn't see them. But then after a week, we came back and wow, there's this big blob. A colony is formed. And so that's kind of like where the terms are coming from, where you get this big mass where originally there was just maybe one or two. All right, any questions? All right, so now we're gonna take a few minutes here to do to work on those course evaluations. All right, so what do you do for that? You go to Blackboard?
It's in your email too.
Blackboard and email. Okay, let's see if we can locate those. Get that out of the way, all right?